Hey, thanks for joining me. My last few power station videos have featured some pretty large, heavy, and high capacity power stations, and that means that budget priced or not, those power stations are still going to put quite a dent in the wallet and maybe a little bit of strain on the back, no matter how you slice it. So for those of you with much more modest needs and or budgets, or lower back muscles for that matter, I think I've got something you're going to want to see. Well, two somethings, in fact. These are brand new products from Anker SOLIX's lineup of power stations, the C300 and the C300 DC. So not only are they both extremely compact, lightweight, and affordable, with the smaller C300 DC, Anker has actually given you the additional option to ditch the AC inverter altogether. So let's do a quick rundown on the key specs on these two guys, starting with what they kind of both have in common. They both do use lithium iron phosphate chemistry, which means they have a much longer service life than the standard alternative of lithium ion or lithium NMC chemistries. And more specifically, that means that even after around 10 years of daily use, you should still be able to expect to have about 80% of the original rated capacity. And speaking of capacity, they both have a rated 288 watt hours of capacity, despite this one being a fair amount bigger than this one. Both units are fully supported by the Anker SOLIX mobile app for remote control via your choice of either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And they both have a nice complement of USB-A and USB-C ports, including PD100 and PD140 watt support. And as you might expect, the more DC-focused C300 DC unit does give you a couple of extra Type A and Type C ports over what the standard C300 has. And both units also do have a standard 12-volt 10-amp car accessory socket and the ability to take up to 100 watts of solar recharging through that XT60 port there on the front. And that supports an input voltage max of up to 28 volts. So as with all solar charge controller inputs, you do want to take care to never connect more than that max rated voltage to the port, or you do risk damaging the charge controller, and that would definitely not be something that's covered under warranty. And speaking of warranty, both of these units have Anker's generous worry-free 5-year warranty, which is always a bonus in the product space where only 2 years of warranty coverage is kind of far more common. Okay, now let's talk about how these two units are different. First of all, they do both have built-in area lighting. The C300 has kind of this typical LED light bar with a nice diffuser. Pretty nice. These are handy for seeing kind of where all the ports are, maybe sitting on a table and pointing the light in one direction. But the C300 DC actually has a unique pop-up style area light right up here on top, which is pretty nice for tabletop or countertop lighting when you're camping, or maybe you just need some light inside your tent. But being located on the top of the unit, the pop-up design is actually really lets more widely dispersed light around an entire workspace or a tent or a room, rather than just kind of in one direction like you would get on one of these more typical LED lights. And then of course, when you're not using the light, you just pop it back down and it makes the unit quite compact, as you can see. I just find it to be a very well considered and welcome design element for something in this very inexpensive budget power station class. Now obviously the biggest difference between these two power stations is that the DC version is DC output only, meaning that it does not have a built-in AC inverter, whereas the C300 does have a built-in AC inverter, and it's rated for a maximum total continuous output of 300 watts with a surge rating of 600 watts. Oh, and one other thing before we jump into testing, as part of the launch promotion period for these two new power stations, Anker SOLIX has partnered with SmallRig, who are a well-known camera and video accessory brand, for an interesting giveaway opportunity, but I'll provide a little bit more detail on that later in the video. Okay, let's jump into the testing and see if these two guys can live up to or maybe even exceed their advertised specs. All right, as I had said previously, I'm talking about the specs. Both of these units are rated for 288 watt hours of battery capacity. But as we know, that's not typically what we're able to get in terms of usable capacity. So we're going to test them with my DC testers here, and we're going to find out through these 10 amp 12 volt ports how much capacity we can actually get versus that rated 288 watt hours. So they're both going to be pulling about 10 amps. Let me go ahead and turn on the DC ports for both of them. And this one will start automatically. Let me make sure we got the full 10 amps. And let me go ahead and fire this one up. I've already got this one set to 10 amps. And off we go. So we will check back when these things shut the discharge down, and we'll find out how many usable watt hours we can actually get out of the DC ports. All right, our first DC discharge capacity test is done. Let's zoom in here and kind of see what we got. Okay, on the left for the C300 DC, we got a total of 242 watt hours out of that rated 288. So that is a slightly upper average number of 84%. And then on the right for the C300, we got 238 watt hours, so pretty close number. and that gives us a squarely average 82.6% of rated capacity. So I think I might run these tests one more time, because sometimes you get a little bit better number after that first full discharge as the BMS calibrates, and we'll just see if the numbers turn out any differently or not. But let's get these guys charged back up and we'll rerun the test. And by the way, speaking of charging these things back up, you can, as I mentioned previously, recharge these via solar. With the C300, it does have an AC charge port, doesn't require a charge brick. It comes with a power cable, so you can charge it via AC, or you can also charge it separately via the USB-C port if you want to, and that is up to 140 watts. Then of course you've got your XT60 connector right down there. Now what's different is on the C300 DC, there are no AC charge connections on this. The only way to charge it is through one of these, or two of the Type-C ports, up to 140 watts each. So you can actually charge it through both of these ports at the same time for a maximum of 280 watts of input, which would give you a recharge rate of somewhere just over an hour, which is pretty good. Most people are probably only going to charge it off of one at a time, but you do have the option of charging it off of two at a time if you wanted to. All right, I've got both units fully topped off again. I did switch them now, so they're going to be using the alternate tester than they used before. That way we can get just sort of a better comparison. I've got the testers reset. So let me go ahead and start up the one over here on the right. Let me go ahead and start this guy. So we'll let both of these run all the way down. We'll check back and see what we got on this second test. Looks like I just caught the C300 finishing up. The DC finished up just a little bit earlier because it was pulling just a little bit more power. But anyway, let's zoom in here and take a look. And we can see on the right side now, the C300 DC actually did a little bit better. We got 255.5 watt hours. That gives us a number of an above average of 88.7% of rated capacity. And then the C300 did a little bit better also, maybe not quite as big of a bump. And remember, we're on the opposite testers now, but we got 242 watt hours, which is basically right on par with what the C300 DC module did last time. That equates to an upper average number of 84%. So either way, very good numbers out of both of these units. All right, let's do a solar test on this. Make sure that these will do a solar resumption unattended in the morning. So the idea is that if they are basically run out of power overnight, that they are still able to resurrect themselves and start solar charging on their own without any user interaction when the sun comes up. So it is about 9:18. I'm going to go ahead and turn my solar panel disconnect back in the on position, and I'm going to plug this into the C300 DC. Now I do have a single 200 watt solar panel. This is capped at 100 watts, as I had previously said, but it also has a voltage cap of 28 volts. And the voltage open circuit rating on my 200 watt panel is only about 23 volts. And under normal circumstances, it won't produce much more than about 20 volts. So I'm certainly okay in over paneling this little power station by plugging that in. Let me just show you where we are at in terms of state of charge. So we're currently sitting at 2%. I'm just going to shut that off. And we'll come back in the morning and we'll see if this thing is charging on its own or not. All right, let's check on the solar here. It is actually not morning anymore. It is about almost noon. And this is the first I could get out here. I've just been so busy. Let me just take a quick look and see. As you can see, we got 93 watts. We're at 67%. Now, as I mentioned, this is a 200 watt connection right now. And we have over paneled since it does max out at 100 watts. And we're getting almost the full 100 watts there at 94 watts, despite the fact that it is pretty largely overcast. But we are at 67%, and it has been very overcast most of the morning due to some storms we had move through. So should be able to fully top this off with a single 100 watt solar panel, or if you have a 200 watt solar panel, you could connect it as long as that, again, that input voltage does not exceed 28 volts, which we are not. So I think we are like right on the edge of 100 as the sun is starting to come out a little bit. But yeah, we should be able to fully top this off because we were completely depleted and we're already at 68% and it is only noon. So 100 watts, definitely enough to fully top this off in under a single day, and unattended, by the way, because that was the whole point of this test, was to make sure that it charged on its own, and clearly it's doing that. So unattended solar charging is a definite pass. All right, let's talk about charging, especially on this C300 DC model. It does not have AC charging directly, so you have to charge it either through the solar port here, the XT60 connector, or through one of these two Type-C ports. If I zoom in on here, you can see that I've got a 100 watt PD100, and then I've got a PD140 and another PD140. And the 140s do have a lightning bolt on them, which I think means that these are two-way. So they're capable of discharging and charging up to 140 volts. So these are two-way Type-C ports. Now, not all Type-C chargers can handle 140 watts. So I actually went and bought, because this is one of the things Anker is really well known for. And by the way, this is not sponsored in any way. I actually bought this thing on Amazon primarily just so I could do this test, and I needed a good quality charger. And this thing is really well built. They are not cheap, but they are extremely high quality. So Anker does these kinds of charging units aside from obviously the Anker SOLIX brand. So the parent company is really well known for this kind of stuff. So I actually bought the cables separately. These cables are capable of handling up to 140 watts. And so this thing is capable of being charged at up to 280 watts, apparently. We're going to test and see if we can get close to that. This particular charger is only capable of outputting a maximum total of 240 watts. So I'm guessing we're not going to be able to get the 280. It just occurred to me I could actually probably get close to that 280 watts in by using, on this side, using the C300 output, the 140 watt output to charge the input on this one. And then I'll use the fast charger laptop, which is a 140 watt output on this fast charger on the other input. And let's see what that does. I think that'll get me really close to that 280 watts input. Yeah, not quite there, but we are very close to 267 watts. Running the Bouge RV Rocky 50 refrigerator off of this C300 DC. It is 10:22 at night, and I have the set point for the refrigerator at 40 degrees on both sides. So let's see if it runs for 24 hours. 10:07, a day later. So for all intents and purposes, 24 hours, maybe a few minutes shy of 24 hours. The refrigerator is still running, as you can see. Let's see what our state of charge actually is. We got 22%. So that's pretty impressive. So we got a full 24 hours of refrigerator runtime out of this little C300 DC. And this refrigerator has no thermal mass in it. It is completely empty. So it had to keep running the compressor more often than it would had it had actually, been stocked with a bunch of stuff. So I would say under normal circumstances, if you had a fully stocked fridge, you'd probably end up with closer to 40% plus. But that obviously could be impacted by the ambient temperature as well. So this is in my garage where it is a pretty steady 80 to 85 degrees during the day, and then it probably drops down into low 70s at night, at least this time of year. So yeah, this thing definitely passes the DC fridge test, and no problem there at all. Okay, let's wrap up with some final thoughts. I do think both of these units are extremely solid choices if you're in the market for something that is easy on the wallet, but still has top-notch build quality from a well-known name brand, provided that that 280 watt hours is sufficient capacity for the kinds of things that you want to do with it. And by the way, if you want to know what kinds of things that you can run with that C300 and how long those things can be run with this unit, I'll put a link to a Google spreadsheet in the video description below for you. Basically, just download your own copy of the spreadsheet, and then you key in the C300's 288 watt hour battery capacity and the 300 watt inverter capacity, and then the spreadsheet will do the rest for you. And if you don't need an AC inverter, maybe you're just wanting to recharge your USB rechargeable devices like your phones and laptops. Maybe you want to run a portable DC fridge for a couple of days, or pretty much maybe indefinitely if you add a solar panel into the mix. This C300 DC power station is really a slick little option with a high-powered USB output and an integrated pop-up area light. I just think this is a really clever design. I think Anker SOLIX did a really nice job on that. And just do remember that this unit does not come with its own USB charger. A lot of people already do have something like a USB-C PD100 charger in the house somewhere, and if you wanted to go pick up a PD 140 watt charger for faster charging like I did, I'll go ahead and leave a link to that one that I showed you in the video that I bought for myself down in the description so you can see which one that is if you don't go check it out. But I do think that this C300 DC is kind of the standout new product here because it fills a unique gap between a small USB battery bank and a full-featured power station. It's just sort of like a USB battery bank on steroids. And I suspect a lot of people are going to find something like this extremely handy. All right, if you recall, back in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that Anker SOLIX is going to be doing some interesting giveaways during this pre-sales promotion period for these guys. So I wanted to put a little more detail on that for you. So over the next 14 days, Anker SOLIX is going to be drawing a winner each day for a total of 14 winners who are going to receive one of these cool C300 DC power stations and a small rig photography kit, kind of like this guy right here. And it includes a handheld tube light like this guy here, a hot shoe mountable video LED light, and this iPhone 15 Pro Max videography kit. And I can tell you, having my hands on this stuff, that it's all very high quality stuff for video accessories if you're into this kind of thing. So if you are in the market for a power station in this smaller sub 300 watt hour capacity class, I do think either of these would make extremely excellent choices. And if you want to get entered into that giveaway contest, I'll put all the necessary links down below in the video description for your convenience, along with all the pre-sales pricing information, which, as you might imagine, is likely to be the best deal that you're going to find on either of these units for quite some time. Okay, I think that's a wrap. If you have any questions about either of these guys that I didn't cover in the video, please let me know down in the comments section. I will do my best to try and answer those questions for you. And if you did find anything helpful at all in the video, I would really appreciate it if you consider giving me a thumbs up for that. I do thank you for spending time with me on this video, and I hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.